tonight we have a special person with us tonight. We got Commissioner for the Department of Parks. I'm sorry, the Commissioner for the Department of Public Works, Vahid Khorsand. Vahid has been around with us for a good period of time. He has got an interesting background, I think, of the places where he has served. The Department of Public Works includes a number of different bureaus, which I think is kind of interesting. We'll find out more about them. They include the Contract Administrator, Engineering, Bureau of Sanitation, Bureau of Street Lighting, and Bureau of Street Services, otherwise known as the pothole repair people. So there we are. That's the gist of it. We'll turn it over to Vahid. Vahid, you've got the floor. Go ahead and tell us something about yourself, what your background was, what you do as a commissioner now, and your interactions with the mayor. And we'll go on and open it up to questions after that. So those of you who have questions, as we get down into this, raise your hands, and we'll be happy to see if we can put you on live if you will make sure you stay on point and get us some questions. Vahid, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, John, for having me. I reached out to him maybe last week. So we know the mayor is going to present her budget by code on as close to April 20th as possible. But with the recent budget situation, there have been a lot of questions about city services. So I've been just making an extra point with the encouragement of the mayor's office to reach out to as many community groups as possible and be proactively engaged and provide as many updates, as much information and as many updates as possible on where we are in service statuses and really answer questions and concerns people may have over the budget cuts and the hiring freeze. Just for background, some familiar faces and names. I've owned a business, or I still own a business with my brother in Woodland Hills. I've been working with him since 2006. We moved into the Ricky Gale building across the street from Taft High School in October 2010. We are still tenants there. I had a wonderful time working with him, serving on different community group boards, being a city commissioner on the Citywide Planning Commission, serving on the Woodland Hills Warner Center Neighborhood Council for a couple of years. But COVID came. I kind of wanted to do a life change, and this is a repeat for many of you who've heard me over the last few years. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do when I told the previous mayor's office that I was going to resign from the Planning Commission. They asked if I would take the West Valley area rep job. I did that for 7 months when I told Bob Blumenfield I'm looking to go back to work with my brother. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? So I went and worked for him for what ended up being a very short period of time. Public Works Commission has been a dream position of mine. I know many of you think someone like me wants to pursue public office, and I'm pretty sure I've told most of you over the years that is not something I'm looking to do, but serving on the Public Works Board was a dream position because it kind of goes to all of the things I really cared about when it came to city services, engagement, and really beautifying LA. And then I came to learn there's more to it at Public Works than just potholes and graffiti. So it's been kind of a cool revelation for me. I'm here to mostly answer questions, but I know a lot of people have some questions already. So I'm just going to take a shot at the dartboard here and provide some information. Major storm is on the way, of course, but I wanted to provide an update from Streets LA on what has happened in CD3 since the last storm. So there were 82 tree emergencies that have been closed from February 4th until March 4th. There have been 993 land and mudslides, that's citywide, that were taken care of. But within CD3, there were 559 potholes repaired in that 1 month period. There were, oh no, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Oh no, fiscal year. There were 1,629 potholes in Woodland Hills. I'm in Woodland Hills quite a bit, folks. I use 311 all the time, and I report potholes. So I'm going to take credit for maybe 3 of those 1,629 potholes. In terms for graffiti, which again, as a business owner, on Winnetka and Ventura, it's practically there every weekend when I go visit my brother on Saturdays. Uh, OCB has between January 1st and March 22nd cleaned up 102,300 square feet of graffiti just in Woodland Hills across, no, in CD3 across 3,666 locations. There have been 298 bags of litter, weeds, debris cleaned up along the public right away. So that's it on those two big ones. I know sidewalk repair is always something that comes up in Woodland Hills. We can talk about that. I'm happy to take questions. I'm here just to reiterate that the mayor has been singularly focused on homelessness and city services. For those of you who heard her speak about city services before, you know that she took office, and one of the first things she tried to do was test out how 311 works, how quickly crews deliver city services. And that's what led her to ED5, which is all about improving city services and delivering those services at your fingertips more effectively and efficiently and more reliably, which has been something I've been focused on as well. So that's why we had 311 week, March 11th. This was our second year. We had an 11% increase on average from the previous 2 weeks across the city. CD3 was about 7% increase. So we would call that a success, that our campaign kind of worked out. People are more aware of 311, how to use it. I like to call 311 your personal concierge service. You report graffiti, a pothole, bulky item, and city crews know exactly where it is, and they'll show up and pick it up, hopefully within 72 hours. I already see a hand raised, John, so I'm just going to take that as a cue that my time is done, and we're going to go to Q&A. But before I do,
yeah.
Just one last part. In addition to being a public works commissioner, one of my official duties is also Valley advisor. So I advise the mayor on not just public works, but in terms of engagement, any policy changes that she may pursue. She does ask specific stakeholders in the valley what would their reactions be, what would their needs be. We've taken meetings as a result of that. So for example, business communities groups had asked for meetings regarding the police chief hire, so we set those up. We've tried to do the same for other groups as well across the valley. So I'd like to think that we're making a lot of good headway in getting the mayor of Los Angeles more FaceTime with the valley constituencies. In some instances, you may not like it. You get me instead of her, but I don't know. I haven't heard any complaints to my face yet. But if you hear any complaints, please let me know. And I'll stop there.
Let's consider this to be a formal request to her through you for the mayor to come join us for a chat session one evening by Zoom. We would definitely love to have her come out and to talk with us and hear about, see some of the faces and hear about some of the things and ideas that she has. Along the lines of you referring things to her, what has been the last thing that you have talked to her about from recommendations coming to the Valley? What kind of subjects, what kind of things you've been talking to her about from out here in the Valley?
So hate crimes has been first and foremost. There's a large Jewish community population in the Valley. We've had a lot of issues. So, we've been trying to set up meetings, and it hasn't been announced, but it has been confirmed that we're going to have her try and join a breakfast in June with one large Jewish community group that is not a specific congregation. I can't give away too much yet because it hasn't been announced yet. So we're just trying to make sure she's aware of specific Valley issues. And along with when I bring up anti-hate and anti-Semitism, so Valley Beth Shalom, which is down the street from where I live, they had overgrown street trees that were blocking security cameras at a time when everyone is on a heightened alert. So we made a point when Streets LA had said, didn't even know the situation, just said, as a matter of practice, this is not in the current rotation. We made it sure, due to public safety concerns, to have it addressed within 24 hours. So those are the kind of things we talk about, is how do we deliver city services more efficiently and effectively that's more realistic for the communities that are interested in it.
Let's get some questions. Dennis, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, sure. Hi, Vahid. I was wondering if you could clarify your position as a commissioner and the commission in general in relation to the departments that you guys are overseeing. How does that all work, in simple terms? I mean, there's usually like a general manager of these departments and things. What's your role as a commissioner in all of the workings of all those departments?
So I guess the return question, Dennis, is how many departments do you think are within the Department of Public Works?
I I got the impression that there was, well, at least the responsibilities of the department, right? That John mentioned a multiple responsibilities.
Yeah.
There's really five. There's really five that I see that are listed certainly off of the city's website: street services, lighting, sanitation, engineering, and contract administration. Are there others that you're talking about, Vahid?
Yeah, so the Board of Public Works itself is a department, so it's really six. We have direct oversight over like Office of Community Beautification, Petroleum and Natural Gas, Climate Emergency, and our board office that does Office of Accounting, which is what ED4 kind of falls under. Um, so we have direct oversight of those departments. When it comes to the other departments, the largest role, so that's the revelatory part, Dennis, right? You're right. They have general managers, and those general managers, aside from commissioners, have 16 bosses, the 15 council members, and the mayor. So in realistic terms, we are there as appointees of the mayor, and so we're still considered one of the 16 because we are there to ensure the mayoral priorities are adopted and are successful within each of those departments.
How do you go about
Our
doing
interact.
that? How do you go about doing that? I mean, is it done by community outreach? Is it done by hearings? How do you go about getting the mayor's point across to all these different departments?
Well, when we have like not project approvals, but like when we have budget approvals that come before us, when we have sewer projects, or we have any public work projects that come before us, is knowing what her priorities are in terms of service deliverability, diversifying the potential contracting base of it, and timeline, and the dollar amount, because sometimes right now they've been coming in a lot higher than what the engineer estimates are. So it's really ensuring that. The other part is that, is in that process. That the other element I would add is any contract renewal lengths that are beyond, like if it's a 5-year contract, then a 5-year renewal is, why is it so long? Why are we shortening these terms up to create more opportunities for other businesses to participate? So, and that's in the public realm. In the private realm is, for example, I have the direct liaison to the Bureau of Streetlights. It's working with Bureau of Streetlights when it comes to copper wire power theft, restoration, fortification, that we're really doing it in an equitable fashion, that we're not just allocating all our resources to one region and leaving other regions in the dark. It's making sure that, especially when it comes to the Valley, and they have crews that are based out of Vermont and Santa Monica, how do we make sure that crews are getting to the Valley portion, especially the far west portions of the Valley and the far northeast portions of the Valley, on time, and are able to do their job in the same amount of time it would take in other parts. So it's finding partnerships in terms of where they can base out of, other resources they can utilize that wouldn't require to have crews go all the way down to Vermont, Santa Monica, pick up the utility trucks and drive all the way back out to the Valley. It's more of a I don't know, not a general manager role, more of a liaison role. So it's kind of hard to define, and then I think that's been the revelatory part. It's a very fluid, and it depends on the situation.
Well, the bottom line is that you're trying to get the mayor's point across on to all these departments so that there's a consistency. Is that fair?
That's one of the bottom lines. The second bottom line is making sure community leaders and just basic have a basic understanding of what the departments do and can for you, right? Like that's been, I think, the biggest challenge is a lot of people coming out of COVID to be like, I don't know what XYZ department does. I don't know how to get this service. Is figuring out how do we really relay that information, especially when we've had early retirements during COVID, and staff shortages.
Yeah, that's actually is an interesting question. If people do not know who to get a hold of, what should they do? Who should they be contact? Should they contact you? Should they be contacted? Is a 311 call? If they say, listen, I got a problem, but I'm just frustrated. I have no idea who to contact, no idea who to get a hold of. What do they do?
You can always contact me, and I'll figure it out. Uh, if not, 311 for any service requests is the way to go. And if you don't see it on the app, calling is helpful. But a lot of things that can't be submitted through 311 that is public works related or even just city related, I'm always happy to help.
All right, well, that's good to know. A couple of questions have come up for Mark has asked, says, if your tires are damaged by the potholes are out there, is there any recourse against the city for your tires being damaged? What's up with that?
You can go to the city clerk's. There's a link somewhere that I have in one of my emails. We've had it come up during the storm. So if any damage, whether it's a fallen tree, fallen street light, fallen street sign, pothole damage, the city clerk has a link where stakeholders can go in and submit the information and seek a reimbursement.
Yeah, from the lawyer standpoint, what we end up doing is making a claim to the city. It has to be done within 6 months or a year, depending upon the type of damage. There's a form to fill out for it. You submit that form in, and then go through the process of people looking at it and making a determination of what's going to be done. But you should make sure that you have all your evidence together, photographs of where it is. And I would advise people when they do take photographs of anything that they take what we call an establishing photograph. So you know where it is in the universe, so to speak. You know, you show a traffic sign or something, then you get closer to it and closer to it. You have the close-ups too. And any receipts you've got, make sure you have those in there too. But I think that would be important for people to know and how to go about doing that. It is available. And listen, some of them are pretty bad and you just don't know if they're there. The first thing, of course, I think you would agree, Vahid, is to get on 311. And there's an app that we have that would allow them to take photographs and get those potholes replaced. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Also, a question here from Kathleen says it's huge complaints she's been hearing in the valley along the boulevard areas with aging trees that are falling onto cars and sidewalks and yards. Is that under your purview with either with streets or with street services, and what's being done with that, and how long is it taking to get people out to it? Are we stretched too thin on that now? Are we able to handle that at this point?
So that goes through Streets LA and Urban Forestry is the crew that goes out. Not stretched too thin. They do send out crews. It's a matter of rotation on maintenance, as I was saying regarding Valley Bus Shalom. They will go out and investigate. And then they'll mark if it's urgent, they'll take care of it promptly. Like if it looks like it's about to fall, they will take care of it. If it just looks like it needs trimmings or regular maintenance, it falls back to the maintenance timeline that they have across the city for trees.
Okay.
But I would also say, like, if anything like that, you can contact 311 directly, or you can contact me directly. And if there's a special situation, like I said, using Valley Veshalom again as an example, that it's a sensitive area, we can always try and find a way to get it addressed more promptly.
Okay. Chris Rowe, you've got a question. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. Go ahead. Chris Rowe, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead,
I'm
Chris.
here.
Ask your question. What's up?
I was typing a couple questions.
I saw that. That's why I jumped on here.
Okay, thank you. So, my first question is, Vahid, you've worn many hats, so I'm assuming you know the answers to some of these. So, isn't there a new state law that says you're not allowed to park within X amount of an area that's a crosswalk? And the reason this is a concern to me is that there is a school that's at the intersection of two major streets. And my concern is that people are parking just either in the red zone or right past the red zone. And where in fact the CUP requires them to park or pick up and drop off on the property itself, not on the street. So can you speak to that question about whether there's a state law that says they're not supposed to be parking and picking up their kids on the street or things like that? That would be my first
I
question.
I don't know about the state law. I can look it up. It's figuring out if it's something that is being enforced locally as well. So I can look into it, Chris. If you can email me which, whether it's a state bill or an assembly bill, I can look into it some more.
Okay, and then the other question I wanted to ask is this. My concern is, and I brought this up a long time ago, during elections. I'm in CD 12. I'm really concerned that the West San Fernando Valley, we lose out on services. And so, for example, we have to go quite some distance from this area, like Woodland Hills, West Hills, to go to the Nicole Burns Center for hazardous waste drop-off. Is there any way that you guys could have a mobile hazardous waste event or something on a regular basis, like in Woodland Hills and alternate or something like that, so that people, and the same is true with e-waste, I know sometimes the high schools would sponsor that, like ECR, but so what can you do to help people in the West San Fernando Valley not have to drive down to Nicole Burns? And thank you.
That's a good point. I wouldn't know if Nicole Burnson is the best example though, because there are some other parts of the city who have said it's further away from them, especially in South LA, to drop off hazardous material. What I would say is you're right, they do e-waste collections more mobile. We have discussed as a board, because the contract has come up for the hazardous waste haulers, what we could do in terms of making it mobile and much more easier. I know we were expecting a report back at some point regarding that, so I can follow up on that as well. It has been something I have pushed personally, just because I know a lot of people, the other part about Nicole Burnson you left out, Chris, and the other drop-off sites, they're not open 7 days a week. So if someone is not available to go the days they're open, what are they going to do? So it's finding ways to make it more convenient for people. And I'll go back to say, like, that's one of the points Mayor Bass makes all the time, is we can't just expect people to come to us. We have to go to them as well. So even when it comes to city services like this, where we're putting time constraints and day constraints that may not work with people's schedules, we have to find out alternatives. So I'll keep pushing for that, and I'll see. I'll get an update on that. But that's a very good reminder, Chris.
Marty, I see you had your hand up. Marty Lippian, go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. I have two things. First, let me say that, and hi, Vahid. Say hello.
Hey, Marty. You're coming in kind of
breaking up a little bit, Marty.
If you
All right, how's this better?
You're better. Go ahead.
All right. Two things. One is a comment. I know we have 311, but the problem that I keep hearing from constituents all throughout this area is that they leave messages on 311 and nothing happens. They just seem to fall away. They're never followed up with either a phone call or somebody coming out and solving the problem. So there's a tremendous level of frustration just dealing with 311. They're feeling like, hey, I've tried it once, twice, even 3 times, and nothing seems to be happening. Nobody's responding. I'm not getting any answer. I'm not even getting an answer like, hey, it's not important enough and we're not going to deal with it. It's just, they're just ghosted, and they are very frustrated with doing that. And the other thing I'd like you to comment on is the impending budget cut, and also the impending cuts to personnel within the city that the mayor is having to deal with. And the question I have is, how many people do you in the department expect to lose, or how many positions do you expect not to be refilled? And how is that going to impact us out here in the West Valley which most people in Los Angeles don't even realize that we exist. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I can speak all day about the inadequacies of the 311 platform. It has been a pet peeve of mine for a while. I mean, I've recorded graffiti on Metro bus shelters and then got a response that says, your request has been canceled, without telling me actually that it's been referred to whoever it is that's a Metro contractor who's going to go clean it up. And then I'll drive by the next day, it's been cleaned up. I didn't get an alert. So that all falls under what ED5 is about. And so those of you who have been in still part of the neighborhood council system, should be invited to conversations and roundtables around how 311 could be improved. So a new contract has been awarded. It's being replatformed. A lot of the feedback from users is being incorporated, one, to make it easier to use, two, to add more transparency in the information that the bureaus and contractors provide, and three, to give realistic timelines on when it's going to be repaired, and four, to give you an update when it is repaired or what the status is. So rather than waiting for the callback, there's some more official automatic prompt that gives you that information.
What is
along with like,
what is ED5 all about? What's its details?
ED5 is about replatforming and of 311 and improving service deliverability.
It's basically just a study on what to be doing with that, correct?
Not a study, right? Because we already approved the contract that went into effect earlier this year for 311. So it's going to be a new backbone system. So it's about how to make those improvements now. Like there is a lot of improvements discussed, and I was on the replatforming committee, but now it's about, okay, we got the funding approved. We have the contractor. We know what the technological backbone is going to be. Now, when I hear from Marty, or Marty gives feedback, is okay, how do we take that now and really apply it and improve the system? So this is really only the third version of 311 in its history, or fourth version.
How long before it's going to go into effect?
Well, it's a slow rollout.
I'm sure.
Because they just started the contract. So now they're in the public community engagement phase of getting that feedback. So my understanding is the full rollout is going to take 18 to 24 months. Noticeable improvements are supposed to be noticed within 6 to 12 months.
Government does work slow. That's for darn sure. And Scott Silverstein, you got
go ahead. Before Scott, yeah, Marty had the question everyone is asking about budget cuts and services.
Oh yes.
So CAO has estimated that it's about 2,000 unfilled positions currently that will be eliminated. I can tell you, Marty, that we have at Public Works hundreds total, like across all of the 5 bureaus and the board office departments itself. We had hundreds and over 1,000 positions that have been vacant, but we still delivered services on time. We still delivered those services that community members had asked for. I think the question is, what you're really asking is, where are these cuts coming from? Is it in vital services? No. Is it going to be the sanitation hauler? No. Is it going to be in public safety? No. Is it going to be streetlight crews? No. Most of it is going to be the administrative function. Most of it is probably going to fall on people in project management, and the city uses a vague description of project management. That's people who really are managing contractor contracts and the such. So, and I can tell you in the Board of Public Works, where the pressure point is probably going to come is going to be in accounting and putting pressure on Executive Director 4, which is about streamlining payments to contractors and construction work.
Well,
that's where we're probably.
It begs the question, though. These people probably were never really that important to begin with. Why were they even around? If you know what I'm saying, if we can get rid of 2,000 of them.
No, they're unfilled. So it's not even positions that are not important or haven't. These are positions that are currently vacant that we haven't been able to fill. They've been authorized. The challenge has been in accounting specifically.
Again, that still begs the question: why would it? if you're going to get rid of them now, why would they even thought of? Why would they even be presented? It seems like the city is just saying, let's just go hire people to fill positions because we want to spend money and want to have these other people around. If you don't need them, why even begin to budget for them? Why should they even be on the list for you now to be cutting at this stage? It just seems kind of strange. You either need them or you don't.
John, I don't know how to give you an answer that you're gonna like.
Probably
Because
not.
I can give you a real example of what I saw. Right. So at Public Works, we were struggling with paying our community-based organizations that are the contractors with Office of Community Beautification. I don't want to use the acronyms to get people lost.
Please.
So these organizations are contracted out. They do, the graffiti work for the most part, and the beautification. So they were not getting paid on time. And so this Mayor Bass was told, like, hey, we're not getting paid on time. We're a nonprofit. We're borrowing money from our board members to make payroll. Why can't you pay us on time? We started a task force, and one of the first things we heard was, well, we got an authorization to hire an accountant just for this, for these community-based organization contracts. And, this was last year in May. And I said, well, given our history, by the time we hire this person, it's 12 months away, because they have to put out the bulletin. They have to then go interview people, score people, hire people. It takes time. We started our task force. How do we streamline the process that we currently have? We took what we have and we took the technology that we have, flattened it, streamlined it. Nothing that cost any money. Like, literally, it was just figuring out how to best use Google Sheets across 4 entities within Public Works. And we improved payment time by over 70%. So, I mean, that's like not an answer that will satisfy you, because in the long run, it's like we authorize these positions because they're needed, but we're also doing the exercises to see that, you know what, maybe there's a faster way to use current technology to meet those goals anyway, when we're talking about administrative roles.
I got you.
So,
Do you have some more questions?
Sure.
Have we got what you need? Marty?
Yeah.
You got any more questions at all?
No, go to Scott.
Okay, Scott, you go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead, Scott.
Good evening. Good evening. I had really just 2 issues I just want to bring up. One of them is more a request, and I work with numerous nonprofits, at least throughout the valley, and we work very closely with trying to get their mission done, trying to expand their service. But when one of them decides that they need to expand, when they need to do some improvements on their facility, they touch seems like a raw nerve with the city, and it's called the LID program, the Light Impact Development Program. And that's merely a water catching system that has to be installed on these small facilities. We're talking about smaller nonprofits up to larger ones, but we need these nonprofits in the city to do their services. But when they have to spend $100,000, $50,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars putting in a water retention tank, as opposed to helping out with a mental health mission or a homeless mission, I think that it would be in the city's best interest for somebody to go back to the mayor and say, maybe we could exempt nonprofits from the LID program, because it's taking money from really where it needs to go to the community, as opposed to storage tanks for water that may or may not ever be used. So I just, if you wouldn't mind, I think that's one way that the city could really help out its nonprofit community and provide more services. That's one. As you know, the LID program has been a real sore thumb in a lot of construction projects. And the other one is more of a question. So we know the city is hundreds of millions of dollars in the hole, and it seems to be an ongoing story that we hear. But the infrastructure of the city seems to be at the point where it's failing. the plumbing, the underground plumbing, the sewers, just look at the alleyways. The alleys look like you're going through a war zone. How is this ever going to be cared for? When is it going to be repaired? Is there any kind of program going forward to replace the infrastructure of the city as opposed to just fix it when a water main breaks? Or what's the story going forward on that? I've never really heard a valid discussion about the future of the city infrastructure. Thank you.
Well, I'll say, Scott, you and I have talked about the LID program. I've not pursued taking it up with the mayor's office. It's a good point that I should. That is a city ordinance that kind of falls on council to make any waivers or changes to, but it doesn't mean the mayor can't champion one. So I'll make sure to bring that up with the business and economic development team that oversees the planning process, because I think that's where that one sits. It doesn't, even though it's sanitation, it's still a part of the planning process. So I will follow up with that one. So our city infrastructure, I've seen some really interesting photos of sewers that are over 100 years old. They're all a part of the public document. If you look at some of our agendas when we do our sewer renewal programs, and you'll see a portion of a sewer that is still brick. It's another one of those revelatory moments of like, wow, we haven't really done anything. So it's being done, and they're not waiting just for any leaks and such or cracks in the infrastructure. It's just a very long system, and it's very costly for some of the oldest portions. So the North Sewer outfall, which is in the East Valley, I know is one prominent sewage line that we are frequently approving new renewal contracts for, and they're doing it segment by segment. I can get I'll look into getting specific information for at least the West Valley on sewer lines and that infrastructure line. The catch basin one, I think when you're talking about flooding in alleyways, so I've noticed is a lot of people drive by the catch basins and don't report them, and they're just blocked with debris, with overflow from previous flooding events, and they don't get reported. In the last one, I got out of my car and was pulling debris out of a catch basin. And I know Councilwoman Katie Yaroslavsky was doing the same thing. So it's just a matter of, and then following up, I followed up with 311, so I can't speak for her, but I followed up with 311 to make sure like it was repaired. But I think that's the other element of people knowing like, hey, you can report if your catch basin is blocked or there's a flooding event, and they'll come out, they'll investigate it and repair it as quickly as they can. That's one piece where people are not doing that. But the sewage line, like I will follow up for you with actual data and information and a timeline. But engineering does a really good job. And I would encourage you to think about individuals, like specific topics from public works bureaus that are relevant to Woodland Hills, and have that speaker come out and really give you a briefing, so to speak, with the technical details of it, because it's really fascinating to see, and it's our tax dollars. Like, you're owed this service. You might as well have the person who's responsible and can give you the best answers, and you can give direct feedback to on how to repair it. And I'm happy to facilitate that as well.
Yeah, also, it's just the general maintenance and repair of the alleys, not necessarily just flooding, but the blacktop, and it's just they're failing. And when is it going to be? How are you going to fix it? When? Is the question.
The alley. See, I misinterpreted your question. The alley repaving one is a good point. Like, when I was in Blumenfield's office, we talked about quite a bit. Is like, how do we get that prioritized and repaired? Because in the West Valley and in certain similar portions of the in West LA, there's a lot of alleys that have not been repaved and preserved in a long time, and because the priority has gone to road services themselves. So you're right on that. It's just figuring out, maybe now is not the right time, Scott, because the funding situation, but figuring out like what is the best practice to expedite and allocate more funding to it, especially with a measure like ULA that is really going towards pedestrian safety. Because a lot of people I ride a bike through an alley, or I walk through an alley. That is a part of pedestrian safety, is if a car is going to go down, and it jumps into a pothole and pops up and loses control, it could hit whatever is there or whoever is there.
Thank you.
I've got Vahid, before we get over to Heath's question, it seems that that there's a lot of activities that goes on with the Department of Public Works. Are you guys spread too thin? Do we need to have a separation of some of the obligations you have to be able to get stuff done, or does it seem to work pretty smoothly as far as you're concerned?
Nothing ever works smoothly. Everything needs improvement. Everything is separated, so it's not a matter of do they work well together or things going better together. I think what's lost sometimes in between all of that is who's the principal person in charge of engaging with community members. I think that is always the key part. Like them working together, getting jobs done, seems relatively. I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to do. How they're engaging with you, how they're engaging with new potential contractors, those are the weak points that we can do more work on.
Gotcha. Well, a quick question before we get to Heath about the road repairs. If somebody's got a roadway that's in their neighborhood that needs to be repaired and what have you, what are they doing with that? I mean, how is something getting done with that? Is it just something you need to report to somebody, or is there a plan for it, or what's the story with that?
So you go on the Streets LA website, it shows you the road repair map that also shows a timeline on when the rotation of when it's going to be repaved or preservation, or if it's a cool pavement project in the future. So that will kind of show that. The second part is
I've kicked up onto the screen.
Perfect.
Is this one that you're talking about?
Yes. So that's one place, like, just immediately you'll have an answer on when are they going to actually come and repave this portion. And the second part is
there are things that I think on this map where you can actually tap in and take a look at what's going on with the road and when the schedules are for it to be done and what have you, that people should know about. That's there. Is this the best thing for people to be able to take a look at to find out what's going to go on with the roads?
That's the best thing, and that'll also indicate, for example, if you have a question, you can always reach out to me or someone at Streets LA on what exactly that timeline is, because they don't always post the specific month or detail until it's within that fiscal year. The other part is, John, when someone submits a 311 for potholes and the crews go out and investigate, they'll do a quick eyesight examination of the area. So if it looks like it needs road work more immediately, they do take that back.
Well, now that's the one that I think we talked about this before. That was kind of aggravated. They did the one over here just outside of Louisville, up on Mulholland, and they took it all the way to the top of the road at Mulholland. But there's potholes on the other side. If they stopped, they needed to go another 100 feet. And I'm going, who the heck made the decision to stop it right there rather than going for another 100 feet? That place is always getting torn up, and it's going to get torn up now with these rains again. Did you ever find out what happened to that as to why they stopped so short?
I thought Keith answered so for background, everyone, we do a quarterly infrastructure Zoom for neighborhood council members. That's been a part of our big engagement push. And we had Keith Mose, who's the executive director of Streets LA, present on road preservation and other Streets LA projects. And John did ask that question. I thought it was answered, but I will follow up, because Mulholland is now a big topic that has been coming up, on especially any road on the hillside.
Never got an answer. It just seemed like the silliest thing in the world. They stopped at the top right there, right where the walkway is. It goes up to like a trail, and never continued on. Another 100 feet, 200 feet to the west of that would have taken care of all that problems. The difficulty is that's a narrow road, one lane each direction. When you come in at nighttime, especially, you got lights in your eyes at that stage. People are trying to dodge those potholes, and you're at risk at that stage. Somebody's going to have a head-on up there at some point in time if they don't take care of that. I was just shocked that they just stopped there. And with the pothole issues too, it's the impression is, again, that if there's a 311 call for a pothole, this is the impression. Now, I don't know. You might be able to help display the fears that we have, that when there's a pothole, they go out and they replace and take care of that one pothole because they can check it off of their list. If there's another pothole 10 feet away and it's not been reported, they don't touch it. It has to be almost reported so they can check it off the list, so they can say, all right, we had 27,000 that were reported and we've done 23 of those. what's your impression with that? And am I just wrong with that, or is that a gut feeling, or is it a true feeling of what's actually going on with the pothole replacements?
So it depends on how recently you use it. So I know, John, we talked about that before too.
Yep.
I've had submitted 311 requests since then, and the response I get back is multiple, like they'll leave the comments is multiple potholes found in such and such area. It'll be a little bit more specific than me saying it's in front of 14547 Ventura Boulevard, which is actually an address I just remembered to put in from yesterday. So it gives you like how many potholes were in the area. It's hit or miss though, is what I think I'm noticing as well. Is in some areas, if I report one, they'll just fix the one. In some areas, if I report one, just because that's the one location I saw, but there's a bunch of them around, they'll fix the other ones around and they'll give me a note. That goes back to the whole ED5 of how do we improve the customer service reliability and responsibility of the bureaus when it comes to the customer submitting those requests.
Gotcha. Keith, you've been very, very patient and sitting waiting. What's up? Talk to us.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Vahid. Vahid,
Hey.
brother. Good to see you. For those that don't know you, and so far I think all the questioners do know you, you're one of the good guys. You're one of the locals from, as you say, the Southwest Valley, and it's great to have you on the inside. And those of us that have worked with you over the years appreciate what you've done in the Valley and wish you continued success. I have a couple of questions for you. I can address them in your role as the mayor's representative out here, and then I have some for you as the Board of Public Works Commissioner. And maybe, John, you could give me screen sharing privileges because I have some photos that I'd like to show.
I think you should have it now.
Let's try it, but I do now. Let's see. Thank you. All right. So, as the mayor's representative, your old friends on neighborhood councils need help. When you were part of the neighborhood council, our budget was $50,000 a year. And now our budget is $32,000, while at the same time, the city's spending, if our rate of increase in funding would have been the same as what the city has increased its spending overall, we'd be up to $128,000. And
Keith, I'm not seeing on screen what you might be looking for here. I just see a general.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll share something here in the background just to do it, but I'm asking my general question.
Okay, gotcha.
Here, NC funding. We need some help. You've got an army of 2,000 volunteers out across LA that can help with so many things, and yet we're just tied up with bureaucracy trying to manage our $32,000 that the city clerk, causes us to spend our meetings just trying to meet their requirements, and we're not doing our good works in the community. So we need some help there. And now, putting on your Public Works Commissioner hat, first of all, I want to thank you for sending out the weekly updates. I open them and read them and appreciate them. And I want to follow up with you, but then I got to go back and do something with the city clerk, so I'm not able to. But here is a picture that was taken a month ago off of Topa Chica here in Area 6, south of the golf course. And this is representative of the conditions that are going on up here, where the roadway is collapsing down the hill and the mud is washing in to people's yards and so forth. And this has been going on literally since I joined the council 20 years ago. And I've had the council reps out here and they tell me, oh, they're going to give it to Public Works. And then they tell me, oh, street services or engineering is ghosting us. So that's a big problem. Now, you know, as a former NC member under the charter, section 910, we're supposed to monitor the delivery and effectiveness of city services. So, you know, if you were to give us a report card to fill out for, you know, the departments under your authority, they wouldn't get very high marks. So what can we do to address that? And how can we get you to come out to this area with management from Public Works and engineering and street services and so forth, so that they can't duck the issue?
Thank you, Heath, for the kind remarks. And I'll start with answering question number one. I was also trying to pull something up, but question number one. So our Deputy Mayor of Community Engagement, Jared Rivera, is the one who oversees Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and that GM. And a part of the GM hiring phase, he's heard a lot of feedback that the budget has been cut, it needs to be restored. And he's heard that, he's brought it up with me, that $120,000 number all the time. Anytime he has an area rep going to a neighborhood council meeting, he does ask, did they ask about the budget? So it is front and center. Second part I would add is, I don't have an answer on how it's going to be addressed or when it's going to be addressed. Second part I would share with you is, so as a part of like the Valley Advisor rule, in top of the neighborhood council quarterly infrastructure Zoom, I've been very mindful about how do we really engage and bring people together. So one thing I've shared is what I've learned from Mayor Bass is we're not going to sit around and wait for you to come for us. We're going to find a way to come to you and build opportunities where people feel we're engaging and we want your feedback and we care about your feedback and we want to take action on that feedback. So with that said, on April 8th, what we've done is we're planning and we have sent out invitations for an in-person convening with the presidents and vice presidents of every single Valley neighborhood council. We can't invite all neighborhood council members because we don't have that much capacity, but the purpose is really to get to those core issues and hear them more directly when it comes to budgeting or other neighborhood council things that we can improve. Not every neighborhood council is going to have the same issue, but having everyone kind of together will help carry that conversation forward. And it's not meant to be just a one-off convening, but to do it a little bit more frequently where we can hear those updates directly and also find ways, lift the veil on the curtain a little bit, but find ways that we can bring neighborhood councils that are adjoining each other to work together and think more operationally on bigger items together that we can deliver a more impactful message with the mayor's office. So that's one. Question number two. So I'm the backup liaison to Bureau of Engineering. Hillside is a big deal. We have the engineering team for the Hillside part. There's a lot of work in the Valley. The lead engineer there is Patrick Schmidt. I probably have a briefing with him for some new funding on a BOE for hillside preservation, probably once every other month, it seems like. And if you send me that address, Heath, I will follow up. If that's a major issue, I can have Patrick come out. But I can also follow up with Streets LA as well when you give me the address on where they are in terms of the mudslide, removing the debris. That's what I can answer for you there.
Right. If I may,
go ahead.
And I want you to be able to finish your answer, but John, maybe you can let me share my screen again. I'd like to show a video because this problem, I can send you the address. I can send you copies of my emails going back over a decade. Nothing happens. How do we solve the problem? I have no idea how the city has been so blessed that they haven't been sued, by people that have their backyards washed out. And, somebody's going to have an MI shoveling mud, and they're going to have one heck of a claim against the city, and this needs to be addressed.
Keith, you should be able to share now. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, John. Let's see if I can do this. I don't. Is that coming up? Are you seeing my screen?
It has not. I'm sorry.
Let's try this
There
again.
it is. I may have hit the wrong button. See if you've got it now.
All right, let me just try this.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Let me get to the right folder. Obviously, I'm not ready for Broadway or prime time yet with my displays, but here, let's take a look at this.
And Vahid, it does become a problem with the new rains we have coming in. We're expected supposed to have
Yeah.
cold rain coming in this weekend. I don't know how much it's supposed to drop on us, but I know the temperatures are going to be really cold. So people are not going to want to really get out and try to sandbag their own places in the middle of all this.
And where is
And
this,
this has been happening for years.
Pete? Where is this specifically?
This is Topa Chica, flowing down the canyon, but the water and mud start up on Alhama, very close to John's. And this happens multiple times a year. And the city comes up with all sorts of excuses, starting with, well, the mud is starting on private property. Okay, then why has the city never in 20 years cited the sources? That makes no sense.
One of the difficulties that goes on, especially up in the hillsides on it, Vahid, which you probably do know, is that the waters up on the top roads have ways of being filtered down. So they go down to the next road, and then they go down to the next road, and then they go down to the next road. And what you're looking at there is one of where they have come through a spillway, and eventually that spillway has come down between the houses and has spilled over into the house location itself. So, there are a number of areas that are beginning to become impacted. And as I'm beginning to find out, which I did not know before, that when there are cracks in the roads, when there are cracks in the roads, that the water gets underneath those particular cracks. And when that happens, when cars go over it, there's kind of like a suction that goes on that causes the underneath areas to become totally deteriorated. So the idea is that even if there's cracks that are in the roadway, those things should get filled up so that you don't end up having problems later on with that area becoming problematic. So this is a roadway that's up on Alham at that point. There's been a lot of discussions, very frankly, on this particular one, because this hump that's here has acted very, very well as a speed bump and has caused people to slow down. This is being caused by some roots that are up over onto the left-hand side, but you can see the pocketing of water that's beginning to show up there. That's only showed up in about the past, I'd say 6 months. We've had that type of stuff, but you can see the alligator type of problems that are there, and the road really needs to be re-slurried again to cover up those cracks so the water's not slipping into that. That's a problem we have up in the hillsides generally, and you can almost pick whatever road you want to, and that would be it would need something that's going to be done there. So I think you need to be aware of that it's almost something that needs to be looked at from the entire valley that's up in the hillsides, because it's just a problem.
And of course, the Girard track is the worst of any of the hillside areas.
Yeah, that's really the bottom line to it. It does get to be a bit problematic with that's for sure. So Keith, go ahead and get rid of that one if you would. I don't think we need that up any longer at that point. So the bottom line is that, especially up in the hillsides, we have problems that need to be taken care of that really don't seem to be looked at this stage. And again, I don't know how you from your standpoint and from the Bureau of Streets would be able to approach it, other than it almost needs to go street by street, and somebody needs to come up and basically drive through it. You know, I'd heard many years ago, and maybe you might be able to confirm this. There was a methodology that the city was inspecting streets to see whether or not they needed to be repaired, and they had a vehicle basically that would drive down the streets. It was very much like what we have now with Google Maps, and that would go down the street. And apparently, it had sensors that were on that, and as it went across the streets, it'd be able to assess the quality of the street, whether or not there are potholes in it or other things in it. And it was done just by driving along on the street, so they could get it done very quickly. Are you aware if that's still in use or ever was in use? Because I understand that was probably 20 years ago.
I don't know about 20 years ago. I know there was a pilot program just recently that wrapped up, I think 2 or 3 years ago. That was actually Councilmember Blumenfield pilot program that he did with I think with Streets LA and sanitation, where they put sensors on those bureau trucks and were able to do a survey of the roadway. And
what was the outcome of that?
From what I saw, the results were good. It was just about finding and negotiating a long-term contract, and then a second or third vendor who provides the same thing came along, and it's just been stuck in terms of negotiating an RFP to put out. And
it seems
we
like
don't get.
Seems like it's a good approach to it, if you will. You can cover a lot of streets, get a lot of information very quickly, and the same thing with the sidewalks as well.
It is. What I was about to say is, like, we don't directly get involved with the RFPs, so I'm kind of blind to where they are in that RFP process of getting it out. So that's where I'm blind to it, just ethically, because we approve those contracts. They don't once they enter into an RFP process, they don't really say, "Hey, Commissioner, here's what's going on."
I got you on that, but it seems like that with the streets that up here, I guess in a way you've almost got to rely upon us reporting to you what needs to be done. But it seems like if you had another methodology, I mean, you could drive all these roads up in the hillsides probably in a day and a half, and get a good reading of what needs to be done and where it needs to be done at.
What I would encourage, John, because I know, like, within the group and just seeing the people who've been on this call, like, we've had this conversation about hillside road repair for a while, and I'm not an expert, so I can't give you the expert answers on timeline and what it is or what it isn't. What I can do is facilitate the conversations and then do the follow-up with the bureau heads who are the experts. Well, that's the realistic explanation, right? So I was gonna I was gonna recommend, if you want, and I know you said you don't have an April speaker yet, we could just have Streets LA come and speak to this topic specifically, and I can help make that happen. That may be more of a productive use of time, than me just giving you answers that are very generic, because I don't have the technical knowledge to.
You've been very good. We don't want the political answers to it. You've been very good in trying to sidestep that. Dennis, you've got some questions. Go ahead.
Well, my question was related to what we were just talking about. You know, a few years ago, the city kept saying, that these unimproved streets or streets that were less than 20 feet wide up in the hills, that they weren't really part of the city, and that they weren't going to get repaved. Now, I know the neighborhood that John and Heath live in more recent times, they got their street paved, but
it was 40 years after the fact, though. That was the bottom line.
Yeah, so what is the policy overall? I know Councilman Blumenfeld worked hard to get some of the streets paved, but Vahid, do you know where that is today? As far as I'm thinking about going all the way across through Encino and everywhere, right? So, yeah.
So those streets are now considered part of the city of LA, is my understanding. And we had this conversation when we had the Zoom. One of the challenges, though, remains is these are supersized vehicle trucks, even compared to 40 years ago. So when they're going up these narrow streets that can't support not just the width, but the weight, it's figuring out a timeline that can get it done. And I think one of the things Keith Mose has said about that is yeah, we're gonna do it maybe in smaller increments than we normally would, just because we can't take a whole truck up there. So I think that's the challenge, and that goes back to the technical question, Dennis. Of I'm not the person who can give you the technical answer of what their equipments are and what their capabilities are. But I mean, you know, John, like it's been 40 years, but hey, we're making progress finally.
It's true. It was kind of funny that they didn't want to touch the streets up here, and it took a long time to try to get them to come up here and repave the
So
streets.
you're talking about like the paving trucks, right? Not the
Right.
fire trucks, right?
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so I here's what I would say, and again, I not to like be the one who's like praising Mayor Bass so much. Like she will tell you, like just because something has been something for so long doesn't mean it's the right way to do things. That's what she tells department heads all the time. And she always has said, just because you do something one way in one area doesn't mean it's the same way you're going to do it in all regions of LA. So you are, you know, because you live there, you experience it every day. You may be able to offer the departments a little bit more insight on how more, you know, just seeing what their capabilities are and what they need to do. You could probably provide them advice on how they can better deliver that services than their own crews can. So that's the other part of like you shouldn't forget is when you have my attention or their attention and you have a solution, be confident because that we haven't necessarily thought of that answer.
Got you on that one. Let's talk about something, switch a little bit of gears to things, especially in the mayor's office. Let's talk about 4181 and the homelessness issues. As I think our listeners know, the 4181 basically is the municipal code that allows certain areas to be posted so that there's not too many camping on the sidewalks and no homeless in those particular areas. What's been your interaction with the mayor on being able to help us out here in the West Valley with the homelessness issue? And we recognize that there are other parts of the city that are far more impacted than what we are. The difference is that when this is in your neighborhood and you're stepping over this stuff and what have you, it's impacting you and you're not really worried about what's going on someplace else. You're worried what's happening right here. Where are we with the mayor and her feelings about what needs to be done out here in the West Valley concerning the homeless issues, and especially with 4181 and putting a stop to some of these encampments, whether they be RVs or be by tents?
So your question, the first question of what does the mayor think needs to be done in the West Valley to address homelessness? The simple answer is more
Okay.
needs to be done. Um, her Inside Safe policy is really a partnership with council offices, the county, and community members. And by community members, I mean it's people who share insight on where are the encampments and how can we prioritize them as a part of Inside Safe.
Describe for us as Inside Safe. What are you really intending for that? Because we know there's been a lot of criticism with a lot of money that's been spent, and as a result, the money's been spent for it. Nobody's been housed by it, or those that have been housed are very minimal, and it's very expensive when you look at per person as to how much it's costing to get done on an annual basis. What is this Inside Safe all about, and how is it being effective? How can it be effective with the monies that are being spent?
So we're now at up to 30 Inside Safe operations, and over 21,000 people alone in that time frame have been housed or brought indoors. So I guess the question to your question, John, would be is, I mean, it's going to cost money to get people off the streets. I mean, I was an area rep at the height of COVID, where one of the issues was we didn't have any solutions. We had encampments left and right, not just RVs, but people living in tents, in parks, and underpasses. And anytime anybody would ask the question of what are we doing, there really wasn't a what are we doing. And now we're doing something, and people are like, well, it costs money. Well, yeah, it's going to cost money. Like that's to get people off the street and house them. But we're making headway. I mean, 21,000 people in a year should be celebrated. One, two, encampment by encampment approach is maybe not the most ideal way, but it's the most effective way to get people off the street and to clean up neighborhoods and house people and get them services. In terms of are they being housed? They're being housed, but we don't have enough temporary housing to then move them into more permanent housing that is still coming online, which is the whole point of ED1 was to streamline that portion of it. So to have more in the West Valley requires you to work more with your council member on identifying those encampment regions that can be prioritized and bringing inside safe operation.
We just the state just passed Prop 1, we think, by not a great margin, but there's a lot of money that's going to come in now to go to the mental health issues. What's the mayor's position, and what's your position in advising the mayor on what we need to do about more mental health issues? We don't have any hospitals that are available to really handle that at this point, although the county USC facility is empty, as far as I know, and there was some talk about it at one point in time through the county of that being used to house some of the homeless people as well. But that was a medical facility, and it seems like that would have been ideal to be able to utilize for some of the mental health issues that are going on with the people that are out there on the streets. Because a lot of them don't want to come into they don't want to be housed. They want to be out in the streets. They like that freedom. They like to be able to have their drugs and do whatever they're doing out there. Where are we standing with that, with the new prop, and what's the mayor's position on that?
The mayor supported Prop 1. I joined her late February. She did a site visit tour of the Valley Rescue Mission facility, family facility off of in Northridge, off Canby Street. She ended up staying longer and asking a lot of questions about mental health services, figuring out like what are the best practices they're seeing and what we can do more broadly speaking across the city. So she's focused on that. She is a nurse as well. So, I mean, she does have a health aspect to when it comes to the mental health side of being homeless.
Are you aware there's a plan yet to be able to utilize those monies for mental health issues? Is there a plan yet?
There is no plan yet.
So that's kind of the stuff that shocks me. I mean, here's the problem. It goes up to the state for us to put monies in at that point in time. She supports it, but yet we don't have a sort of a working plan, if you will, to how we can move forward with that right away to get to, to hit the road running at this stage.
So I can't speak to what a ballot proposition the governor put forward is in, right? I know what was in the ballot proposition, how the funding is allocated through that, but how it gets down to specific counties is the part where, I'm not the expert on. What I would say is the mayor created the mayor's office of community safety, expanded circle care. We had another convening 2 weeks ago where we visited the circle decompression site, which is right outside the Marvin Browdy Center on Van Nuys Boulevard. It's open to the public. Anyone can stop in and see and ask questions.
I'm not aware of that, Vahid. I'm not aware of that. What's that facility? That's a new one for me.
It's not a facility. It's a site. It's not a facility. It's a site. So it's basically where someone who is in immediate need of housing or care can just go into this site. It's right next to where the Quiznos sign is up at Civic Center on Van Nuys Boulevard. Anyone can walk in. You can ask questions. You're more than happy to. It was really interesting to see like they've had people come in and stay for 12 hours until they found a sheltered site. I think the longest someone came in over a weekend, so it took them about 72 hours. So those are the efforts of one, being more proactive in sharing this information, and two, the Office of Community Safety is sending unarmed response to address mental health crises and figuring out what's the best way to approach that to limit, what LAPD has said is that they're not qualified for these types of calls in handling those things. So how do we send community safety experts, mental health experts to go out on these calls, provide the services, build relationships, bring people indoors and get them the care they need.
It's a big task. And one quick question, Marty, before we come to you, if I may. The mayor is required through Judge Carter, the federal judge, to be reporting back to him on how those monies are being spent in accounting issues. Where do we stand with that presently? What's going on with that? What are we as the public going to be able to find out about that?
I'm not. I can only go with what was said in that court document, which I think was we're going to turn over all of the information we have, and the public can easily access that information.
But nothing.
We're also going. Nothing. It's only been a week.
That's all right. Things move slower than I like them to. That's for sure.
We're also going into budget season, as you all know, within 3 weeks, or a month. So that information will naturally become public as well in that process as well.
Very good. Marty, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, all these programs that are out there and plans and dealing with this homeless issue and the mental issues and everything else are great. But, you know, we got a $500 million deficit. And all of these plans, you know, we put in there, the city has put in a lot of social democrats or socialist democrats or whatever their title is, who seem to think that the city is nothing but a big piggy bank to fund all these programs. And most of that money is coming out of homeowners and small businesses and everything else. I mean, with the cuts and the budget problem, where is this money supposed to be coming from to take care of all these people? You know, the nursemaids they've got on the MTA now and everything else. It's just, it seems irresponsible and unaffordable. So what has the mayor got to say about that? How is she going to not keep breaking the piggy bank of and the savings of all the homeowners and the small businesses throughout the city?
Well, I don't think we're breaking the piggy bank on the mayor's proposal. She was elected with a mandate that clearly said get people off the streets, house the streets, beautify the streets, clean up the streets, whether that's graffiti, potholes, trash. I mean, housing 21,000 people, Marty, like, you know, would you have preferred to see them on the street and have seen the crisis continue?
You know,
but I mean,
I don't want to see hundreds of or millions, and sometimes I think the figure, and I don't have the figures in front of me or anything, can creep up into the billions here for Southern California. And at some point, it's lunacy, it's financial lunacy, and that doesn't seem to be working. I mean, I agree with 21,000 fewer people sleeping on the street.
But I think looking at it from a different prism. So, you know, I come from a business background that was focused in institutional financial research and understanding corporate balance sheets and new business strategies, right?
Right.
This is a new investment. This did not exist before. There's going to be costs associated with getting it off the ground because it's new and it didn't exist before. It doesn't mean the cost is going to continue, right? Like it's any investment we're making once we get someone off the street and we can stop that cycle of people going back on the streets. That's an investment in. But
you're warehousing people. That's the problem. There's no an investment I expect a payback from an investment. Okay, right. I expect earnings. And right now, the philosophy is just get them off the street, put them in buildings, and get them so we don't have to watch them. That to me is not a solution. You're warehousing.
The mayor would agree that's not. Marty, the mayor would agree that's not a solution. So one of the other parts we do at Public Works is we have the Clean LA Jobs program that offers jobs and for reentry and people who are formerly unhoused. So finding ways through the economic workforce development department of finding jobs for people and pathways to employment. So that's the investment we're making. We're trying to not just get people off the streets and not think about them. We're trying to move people from being unsheltered to sheltered to get services, whether it's mental health, whether it's getting documentation for their driver's licenses, their social security information, getting their GEDs, finding pathways to employment and self-sustainment. I mean, that's what we're focused on. That's what the mayor's been focused on.
One quick question to you that's kind of, I don't know how touchy the subject may be. City of Los Angeles is still a sanctuary city. Why is it being continued? We're finding throughout some parts of the country that is causing some difficulties. And where is it beneficial and why is that continuing and should it continue? Where do you stand with it? Where's the mayor stand with it?
I have not asked about Sanctuary City. I didn't know that was still a topic, but I can find out.
I'm going to give you we're at just about the last couple of minutes here. I figured I'd give you one that might be off the norms here for you.
I will follow up for you on that one.
Well, it's just kind of strange. I know when I first started dealing with the city that the police department was unable to really do anything concerning that. And it seemed to be kind of strange that there should be, and I think the rationale at the time was that we want everybody to be able to come forward and feel free to talk about things no matter where backgrounds might be, and not be fearful if they're going to be deported or what have you, because if there was people are being taken advantage of because they said they'll never report it because they'll be deported. And so there's a certain benefit to that too. But I think that there's probably some hybrids we might be able to take a look at now, because there's a lot of people that are coming into this country and a lot that are going to be here that's going to probably increase some of the homeless that we have around. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen any statistics on that. Again, the question to you, are you seeing or hearing statistics that the homeless are becoming, or the immigrants, the illegal immigrant, whatever term you want to use, it's the appropriate one to where nobody gets mad at you. What are they becoming homeless, or is that not turning out to be a problem in the city of LA as far as you're hearing?
The most prevalent answer we hear is, I'm assuming you mean the ones who are being sent by Texas to California. Is that the question, John?
That's you can add that on if you want, or if those that are coming across the border from down in Tijuana, or those that are coming in from Canada, whatever. If those people that are finding their way into Los Angeles, who are not documented, again, use whatever term that you're going to feel comfortable with. You know what I'm talking about. Are they ending up on the streets as homeless people, or are they not? Or do we know?
So I would say LAHSA does a good job on the homeless count of asking those questions as well in their follow-up surveys. And I haven't seen that to be the case in those surveys. A lot of times people grew up in the areas where they're unhoused. So whether they're undocumented and they're saying they've lived there for a long time, I don't have the answers for that. I can speak to the migrants who are being sent on the buses from Texas. What we've seen, the most prevalent story is they get here and they move on to a different city. LA is not the destination they're looking for. They're taking the bus ride to come out to the West Coast. So, I mean, that's the specific answer I have for you on that one that I can give you.
That's fair enough. I'm sorry to throw you with a curveball on that one, but listen, I'm always curious about what you always got your ear to the ground on things that are going on. So I figured if you've got some ideas on that, we'll certainly listen to you. We've come up to the top of the 9 o'clock hour. You've handled some questions that have been a little bit tough and a little bit difficult from time to time, and I think as that Heath had said that you're one of the good guys, and we appreciate that. You've got a good background out here in the western portion of the valley. You've been out here for years. You've worked with a lot of us on a lot of areas, and you've been always responsive to us on trying to find the truthful and honest answers about things. So we deeply, deeply appreciate that. And so we hope that you'll continue to interface with us in a lot of these areas and help us find some individuals that'll be able to provide us with not only just answers to things, but also with good programs and good solutions to things that we need to have done out here in the Valley area. We have a lot of potential development, especially the Rams coming out here now, and there's some things that we'll hopefully be developing that will be providing a great deal more excitement, I think, for the western portion of the Valley. So we deeply appreciate that. And again, a reminder to all of those that have been listening, if you're not members, please join us. If you think that we're doing something that's good for your neighborhood, let your friends and neighbors know about it. Join us. WHHO.com. You'll find an application for that. We deeply appreciate all of you that have been listening to your questions and what have you. We hope we've provided some information that helps you understand a little bit of government a little bit better. Fahid, give you the last word. If you have something that you didn't get a chance to address or what have you, you still got a few moments. Go ahead.
No, thank you for the invitation. I'm always happy to answer questions via email, phone call. You know where to find me. John, Scott, Dennis, Marty, you all know where to find me. Kathleen knows where to find me. Chris knows where to find me. Shelly, you got to know who I am so you can find me too. I think the one part I want to leave with is I always like to go to meetings with action items for myself and action items for the people I meet with. So I think here we're settling on there's questions I need to follow up on. But in all seriousness, if you have questions and concerns over hillside road preservations, really consider having Heath Mosé come out and have a technical conversation. So, and if you'd like to see me help make that happen, John, just reach out to me. And, if it's not April, we'll figure out the date that works best.
I really appreciate that. We thank you greatly for that. Listen, again, keep up the good work that you're doing. And for all of you tonight, we thank all of you for participating. To all, have a blessed night, and please take care of yourselves. We'll talk again soon. Take care. Good night.
Good night, everyone.